What's up everybody, this is CleanGameReviews and today I will be reviewing Battleborn. First, let's start off with visuals. For visuals, I give Battleborn a 4 out of 5. I think they did a pretty good job of crafting this world. It looks interesting. It actually does have a very Borderlands art style, but overall the game is unique in its setting and the characters that it's put into the world. I think everything looks pretty good. The only reason I give it a 4 out of 5 is the fact that there's honestly during battle way too much color. There's explosions that are just making it impossible to see exactly what you're shooting at. There's multiple times where I'm just shooting into a swarm of color and just looking for numbers to pop up without actually knowing what I'm shooting at. Also, there becomes the problem that melee characters can get into the middle of the battle and they're unable to see their environment because there's so much color just splashing onto their screen. It's very disorienting and can be overwhelming when you're in the middle of a fight. And I think overall they did a good job at crafting a world that looks unique and it's quite enjoyable to explore. Next, let's move on to sound. For sound, I give Battleborn a 4 out of 5. I think they do a good job with the sound. The weapons sound average. They don't sound particularly great or terrible, but where the sound really shines is through the characters. The characters sound really good. Every character sounds unique and interesting. They honestly have their own personality just through the dialogue they give. This game definitely has humor very similar to Borderlands. It's a very dark humor. It's just kind of ridiculous at times, but it honestly made me laugh and chuckle a couple of times. The dialogue's pretty funny. I think it helps flesh out the characters and make them more interesting. Overall, I think that the sound for this game's pretty darn good. I think that they did a good job with the characters, and though the weapons sound pretty ordinary and they don't really shine through, the characters themselves, dialogue is really interesting. All the voiceovers are really good, and I personally enjoyed it a lot. We now move on to gameplay, which I give a 3 out of 5. Battleborn combines a first-person shooter with MOBA elements. It's interesting. Basically, it's a hero shooter where 5 heroes are going against another 5 set of heroes, and they try to either destroy a sentry or guide minions to an objective. This gameplay is interesting and fun, but it's not the most entertaining. I personally am not a huge MOBA fan, but I do enjoy first-person shooters. I didn't find it to be that interesting. Honestly, the combat was getting really dull and repetitive. Certain characters seem unbalanced. They seem to have a far more capability of being self-powered without needing the assistance of others, while others seem to solely rely on the assistance of others. Furthermore, I just don't think that they did a good job in the overall balancing. I constantly found my character being put into lobbies with people far more leveled than me. I'll be a level 11 amongst people in a lobby of level 50s. This is important because the higher level you are, the more characters you have unlocked. But not only that, but there's a system in place where you can put gadgets on your hero. The problem with that is people that are higher level can often have better gadgets, and they seem to be unbalanced in the fact that I would be facing people with far better equipment and gadgets than my character. In Battleborn, there's a system in place that allows you to collect shards. You use shards to buy your equipment, but also to buy turrets and deployables that allow you to advance yourself in battle. The only problem is I found that these things are often used to buy the equipment and then you can buy turret. But eventually you buy most of the turrets that you're going to need and you just have an excess of shards. This makes it towards a late game when shards become almost useless, and I find that people stopped collecting shards almost completely, and it makes it so that shards aren't nearly as important as they were in the early game. I think this would have been easy to fix. You just make it so turrets are either more expensive or you can upgrade them more to make them more powerful, because honestly in the late game turrets become a lot less effective. They are very easy to take out and they just don't seem to be cost efficient anymore. You put tons of resources into building these turrets and they can be wiped out in a couple seconds. I just don't think that the turrets are very effective, and I think towards the late game they're just not balanced and powerful. They need to be able to be upgraded more, and if that would also solve the problem of the fact that we have an abundance of shards in the end and there's really no point investing them in turrets because they're just so quickly destroyed. I think someone that enjoys League of Legends or Smite or Dota might enjoy Battleborn. It's pretty similar in concept. It has similar ideas in place, but I don't think that most people are going to enjoy this game. This game's going to be for a specific type of audience, and if you're not part of the MOBA genre, if you've ever been interested in trying a MOBA, this might be a good first start. It has pretty simple mechanics. It's probably one of the easier games to get introduced to in the MOBA genre, but if you've already tried the MOBA combat and decided that you don't enjoy the mechanics, Battleborn's not going to change your mind. Now that we have gameplay down, let's move on to story. Battleborn's story gets a 2 out of 5. 5. Battleborn's story takes the idea that there's only one star left in the galaxy, and all these factions are trying to keep the star safe, while there's another faction trying to harvest a star to use its power. While this is an interesting concept, I never really feel like Battleborn capitalizes on it. It's more of a backdrop to just all the combat that's going on. They never really go into deep detail about the characters in it. The main villain has his reasons for doing it, and they are justifiable in a certain extent, but they don't overall make it that interesting. I don't think that they ever make the story that important. It's never the focus of the game. The campaign missions are more about protecting certain planets and never really about the overarching campaign. You don't really feel like there's a massive conclusion or that the results of any of your actions throughout the campaign were actually a deciding factor in the end. Overall, I don't think Battleborn does a great job with its story, but I don't think that was ever the intention of their design. Moving on, Battleborn gets a 3 out of 5 when it comes to replayability. I don't think they did a great job at making it so that there's a unique experience every time you play. I often find that I'm constantly playing the same map over and over again. It goes through a voting system, but there's only 2 maps to pick from, and most of my games were on one map. Rarely was the other map chosen. I don't know if this was because one map's just better than the other, or people are just more comfortable playing the same map over and over again. I found it repetitive and not unique. I found it just to be a bother. While the gameplay and mechanics are still viable on the same map, and overall most MOBAs use one map anyway, I just found it kind of dull and not that fun to just constantly be playing in the same environments over and over again. Also, replaying campaign missions, they're just not that fun. You're just guarding a sentry bot, moving them to one location to another. The overall objectives just aren't that interesting. Once the initial jokes of the campaign have been explained, you're not going to laugh a second time at the same joke. I just don't think they did a great job of making the campaign that replayable. I think you're going to play it once and then go to the multiplayer. When it's all said and done, Battleborn is an okay game. Because of that, it's getting a 6 out of 10. I think that there's mechanics and ideas in place that make it really interesting, but with balancing problems and also the fact that there's just not that much replayability, I think your enjoyment out of this game is going to be, do you really enjoy the MOBA genre? And have you always wanted it to be at a first-person perspective? If you wanted both of those things, this is the game for you. I think they do a lot right, and I think with some patchwork, they're going to be able to make this game a lot more fun. But if you know that you don't like the MOBA genre, Battleborn's not going to change your opinion on it. I think Battleborn is an interesting MOBA, and I think its first-person perspective might make it more accessible than many other MOBAs. In the end, I think that this could be a good